Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Aliens and UFOs video. I thought I would mix one of these in while I'm wrapping up the Mysteries and Oddities video, only because I haven't talked about aliens and UFOs in quite a while. Can you believe it's been since about October or so? So absolutely, it's about time to mix one of these in. This topic though is very interesting because it seems like I already talked about a variation of it before within one of my Cryptids and Monsters videos, a little bit like a year and a half or so ago. It had to do with a topic called the Oakville blobs, which had to do with some strange gooey-like substance that was falling from the sky in certain areas here in the US. So I'm including the link below if you wanted to take a look at that later on. This topic though has to very specifically do with UFOs, if only because of the fact that there's always been viewings of UFOs nearby, followed by then this topic here. And it has to do with yet another type of item that seems to fall from the sky. People collect it, people can see it, people have studied it, but to this day nobody can really state exactly what it is. And so I'm talking about this. It has to do with what's called the angel hair, or in some variations it's called the UFO Drop Angel Hair, which you're looking at a picture of here. What's interesting is that this stuff has been reported throughout multiple parts of the world, and if we include the other video that I mentioned earlier, the Oakville blobs, then it definitely has happened here in the US too. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about everything associated with it. So what was, or what is, this UFO Drop Angel Hair? Well, it seems to be a weird, almost mist hair-like substance, very white, that seems to have fallen throughout various times, recent times in fact, if you go back to 1950s as the earliest time period. The most reported incident seems to be in a place called Oloron, France, back in 1952. It was at this time that the first thing happened with regards to the UFOs. People reported seeing there over 30 red spherical UFOs, all of them flying overhead. And this was by multiple witnesses. And the way one of the people described it, a guy by the name of Jean-Vies Prigent, he was a school superintendent of some sort there, he stated that one of those UFOs was described as having a narrow cylinder inclined at about a 45-degree angle, and it was slowly moving in a straight line from his direction towards southwest. Now where things get even more fascinating is the fact that towards the upper end of this UFO, whatever this narrow cylinder was, there was a plume of what he described as white smoke coming out from the bottom. And with it, there was like a white hair-like substance that slowly but surely started to cover multiple areas in that town of Oloron. In fact, people stated that it covered telephone wires, it covered tree branches, and then finally it covered a bunch of the roofs there within the homes. And you could actually touch this thing, whatever it was. It didn't actually disappear on contact. It didn't, like, let's say change into something else. No, in this case people could actually pick it up and examine it, so much so that people began rolling it into a ball. And it was at that point that this hair-like feel to it, once it was rolled up into a ball, turned into what was described as a gelatinous substance. And then it was finally at that point that then it would just flat out disappear thereafter. So very fascinating. So you had almost several iterations of this thing. First, it fell from the sky as a white hair-like substance. Then, whenever you would roll it into a ball, I guess, make it into a tight, compact ball, maybe touching other parts of itself, all together in one place, that's when it would turn into that gooey gelatinous substance, and then finally give it a little bit of a chance of time, and then thereafter it was gone, just completely disappeared. So this one was very fascinating to read, so much so, I don't know about this part, but if you were to believe it, a lot of this stuff fell and actually trapped one man. One man apparently claimed that he was trapped by this material. He was able to free himself, and then that's when this white hair-like substance then rose back onto the air by itself. Don't know necessarily if that is actually true, because you would think that something like this falling into such a slow, very carefree manner that you would have all the time in the world to essentially get out of it. But in this case, at least according to this man's claim, he became trapped by it. Cut to about 10 days later, and there was another major incident also in France. This one in a town called Galiac. I hope I'm saying that correctly. There was a pair of gentlemen, Gennaro Lucetti and another guy, Pietro Lastrucci, I believe I'm saying that correctly. They, in that case, also, I'm sorry, yes, they saw this, but as they stood on the balcony of a hotel, they saw two quote-unquote shining spindles flying across the sky. Whatever they were doing, who knows, but they were definitely categorized as UFOs. But in a very similar manner again, both of them left a trail of this angel hair behind them, and just like the other situation, it also fell into various portions of the town. Cut to a couple of years later, there's a Portuguese city called Evora, November 2nd, 1959 to be specific, and again, two disc-shaped objects were also seen hovering across the town, and yet again this angel-like hair also fell within various parts of the town after these UFOs left. This time though, this stuff was analyzed by somebody there that happened to be smart enough to take this before this thing disappeared and analyzed it under a microscope, and then they were able to try to see exactly what it is. Unfortunately though, there was nothing conclusive about what it was, even though it was analyzed by that person who was a local school director, and then by other personnel, apparently armed forces technicians, even scientists at a local university called the University of Lisbon. None of them were able to truly state exactly how or what this thing was, other than the fact that upon very close examination, it looked like it was a small organism with about 10 arms reaching out from what they called a central core. I don't know though if anybody actually took any more evidence of it or pictures or anything along those lines, but at least with regards to that, that's the closest thing associated with it. By the way, there was another incident, this time here in the U.S., Florida, 1957. Again, I don't know if this is unrelated to the other circumstance, the Oakville blobs, but there was a guy by the name of Craig Phillips. He also saw this angel hair falling down. No reports though about, let's say, a previous UFO before this angel hair fell down, but he also collected samples, but quite mysteriously, whenever those samples were, I guess, trying to reach a laboratory, they quote-unquote disappeared. I don't know exactly how that happens. I don't know if maybe he sent them by mail and they disappeared, or maybe that he was personally sending them himself, and then along the way to the laboratory he gave them to someone and then it disappeared thereafter. Who knows? But that's all the information associated with it. Finally, the last known instance seems to be, or the most recent one, back in 1978, February 10th, a large, very, very large number of these angel hair-like fibers all fell from the sky. The only difference is that this time it was over 2 hours, if you could believe it. 2 hours of this hair falling everywhere, and it was at a place called Samaru, New Zealand. So interesting stuff. So that's all the information really associated with this UFO drop angel hair. Again, not really concrete evidence as to what it's made of or what it is essentially, but with regards to UFOs, there's definitely a link to them appearing at various parts of the world and then having this mysterious white substance coming out from these UFOs being discarded almost, and then having it fly into these parts of town. So if anyone has any more information associated with that, that would be really, really good to hear. If anyone knows any more current examples, because again the last one was around 1970s or so, then that would also be really good to hear. It'd be interesting to find out if all this stuff related to UFOs is just their form of exhaust, like on our end, obviously with our cars and the way the tailpipe has the exhaust. It'd be interesting if this was their form of an exhaust, or whatever kind of engine, quote unquote engine, that they have, if this is the material that comes out of it. And here we are thinking that it's something else completely different, but in a very similar manner. What if it's that form of their own exhaust? So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.